Who can you go to when it seems like there's no one else to go to? Who really understands what you're going through? And who can you share your most intimate secrets with and know that they can be trusted and that they can actually do something about it? King David in Psalm 62 was in a tough situation. He was worried about his situation, that people were trying to topple him from his position and his power. He said, "How long will all of you attack a man to batter him like a leaning wall, a tottering fence?" in verse 3. They only plan to thrust him down from his high position. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. Have you known someone like that? They bless you in front of your face, but they curse you behind their back. That's exactly what King David was feeling. It's people who we can't trust sometimes. And then what does David say in verse 5? He says, "For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, I shall not be shaken. On God rests my salvation and my glory, my mighty rock, my refuge is God." He put his hope in God. In spite of what people were doing, even the closest to him, he knew that God was his rock and that he could wait in silence for him. You know, in those silent moments when it's hard to wait or even to be still, King David is saying you can find God in those moments. And then look what David says in verse 8. He says, "Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us." Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Look at three things that he says. Trust in him, God, at all times, O people. He's not saying trust in people, but trust in God. What is trust? Well, we know what it means. Here's a fancy acronym I came up with. Trust is transparent reliance, understanding sovereign truth. Trusting in God is transparent reliance, understanding sovereign truth. Transparent meaning we can be honest and we can say, "Lord, this situation looks bad. It's bleak and I'm hurt or I'm in need." We can be transparent and we can rely on God. You know, when our resources fall short of whatever task, we can rely on God because his resources and his strength is limitless. And we can understand sovereign truth. If we really understand who God is and his sovereignty, that he's in control, he has ultimate supreme authority and power, then we can trust and rely on him. And we can know his truth. You know, there's a popular saying today about knowing your truth or speaking your truth. But when Jesus came, the Son of God, on this earth, he said, "I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." He says that in John 14:6. In John 17, he says, "Sanctify them," or set them apart, or his disciples, those who came to believe him even now. "By thy truth, your word is truth." So here we have Jesus himself as a personification of what is really true and truth. And his word is truth. So trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. You know, our hearts are the seat of our mind, will, and emotions. In order for us to pour out our hearts, sometimes they have to be unclogged or declogged, you know, like a sink that's been filled up with dirt and grime over the years and can't get the water through. It needs to be unclogged. How do we get our hearts unclogged so that we can pour them out before God? One thing is by confession, really being honest with God and admitting where we've fallen short, where we've done wrong, where we've hurt Him or other people. To be honest with God, to pour out our heart before Him. And what is the third thing He says? He says, God is a refuge for us. What is a refuge? A refuge is a place of peace, a place that we can go and be with where we belong and we're secure. It's a quiet place, a place in the midst of a storm or the storms of life that we go through. So we can trust in Him. At all times, oh people, pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us. He goes on to talk about how so many people rely on their position and the prestige in their life. He says in verse 9, those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. In the balances they go up. They are together lighter than a breath. Put no trust in extortion or oppression. Set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart on them. He's saying when it comes down to the end of our lives, whether it's today or tomorrow or 30 years from now, whether we're viewed in the eyes of others as having high rank or being prestigious, or whether we're viewed as others as just being a nobody or low life, he says we're all together lighter than breath. Solomon says in Ecclesiastes, it's all vanity. And that if we have riches, that we're not supposed to set our heart on them. And then finally, David says in verse 11 through 12, once God has spoken, twice have I heard this, that power belongs to God, that to you, O Lord, belongs steadfast love. So why can we trust God? Because all power belongs to Him. And that with Him, we have steadfast love. So when you're at the end of your ropes, or maybe you're on the mountaintop, remember, trust in Him at all times. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for you.